I feel really empowered being here with you today. Thank you so much for being here. You know, isolation, fear, intimidation, those are really powerful tools, but we're not going to be silenced. Our voice is not going to be silenced, and you better believe our vote is not going to be silenced. Now, I'm not naive. I know in our part, our very special and beautiful part of the world, we can feel like we're shouting into the wind, maybe that we're adrift on a very choppy sea. Pick your metaphor. But I do think it's really important that we acknowledge how many of our fellow childbearing humans have been feeling like this for years, for decades, and for centuries. So it is a time for solidarity now. And it's time for action. This is about action. We're mad, and let's use that anger.
Yeah! Woo!
So first, a few items of business. We may have some counter-protesters at this event, and if we do, please do not feed them. Don't feed the counter-protesters. Don't engage with them. It takes away from our message, and it only makes them feel empowered. And this is a day for empowering our group, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So, if they get obnoxious, we will cheer. And so let us practice our cheer. Roe the vote.
Roe the vote! Roe the vote! Roe the vote!
Excellent, excellent. We are ready. We are ready to not feed the counter-protesters. I want to make sure that we say some thank yous for the supporters and partners of this rally. First, a special shout out to Moscow Contemporary for hosting our sign making event. Yay, Moscow Contemporary! Can we see all those great signs that you all have brought along? Women are funny. You guys are so clever. And thank you to the Moscow Peace Band for helping us make our voices heard. Always there for us, the Moscow Peace Band. We have quite a few organizations tabling with us today, and I hope after the speaking portion of this event is done, you will take time to visit each and every table. They all deserve your attention. Over here, we've got the League of Women Voters of Moscow. They are all about getting out the vote. And the educated vote. We don't just vote because we vote because we know what we need and what we want. So make sure that you visit them. If you are not registered to vote, you can register through October 14th. That's Friday. And in the state of Idaho, you can register same day at the poll. If you are not registered, do not be intimidated. You can register first right at the poll. Ask the League of Women Voters about what you need to bring with you if you might need to register same day. Do not let them turn you away because you are not registered. You can register. Also, we have Babe Vote here, another voting organization. Also awesome, got some cool swag. Stop by Babe Vote. Two really important groups, Northwest Abortion Access Fund and Planned Parenthood are here. Let's hear it for them. If you've got a few bucks to drop somewhere, please, please, please. Those organizations are so critical. We've also got our Latah County Democrats tabling here. They can help you to register to vote, and they have lots of info on pro-choice candidates up and down the ballot. And finally, our rally hosts, Bands Off Moscow. Yay! This volunteer group is doing so much work to keep us organized, so thank you so much to them. They are a host of resources. They have a host of resources on hand. They have some great t-shirts, stickers, and buttons. And if you can, put a few dollars in their jar. They're all volunteer grassroots org, and they need your help to put on rallies like this. And we have to keep showing up. We have to show up. So now we're gonna head into our program. We've got some really important speakers lined up for you all. I don't know, did I even introduce myself? My name's Dulcie, and I'm really happy to be here with you all. So you are part of a nationwide weekend of action, fighting for our right to safe, legal abortion. And your voice matters so much in Idaho, so much. In a moment, we're going to bring this to the stage people who are going to tell you about the impact of these extreme laws in Idaho. And we know now it's not just about abortion. They're coming for contraception, and they are our right to even talk about these issues, our right to free speech, the First Amendment, right? And I just want to say, I see you, state employees. Believe me, I see you, state employees, and I know how anxiety-inducing this moment is. So we're going to hear from a student government leader, really excited for that. We're going to hear from the president of the university's faculty union, and we're going to hear from one of our own local doctors. Then we're going to hear from 3 really amazing pro-choice candidates that are running for our state legislature, a place that seems crazy, because it is, and we really need some sane voices down there. I just want to remind you all, the biggest voting bloc in Idaho is not extremist Republicans. It might be the loudest, but it's not the biggest. It's non-voters. Non-voters make up the biggest percentage of potential voters. So young people and women are registering to vote in Idaho at rates we've never seen before, and this is our opportunity. So, if you don't know your registration status, find out. If you're not registered, what are you waiting for? None of the speakers are going to be offended if you go over to one of these tables and register to vote while they're talking. They're not going to mind one bit. So I hope that you will join them, join all of these new voters as a wave, and we will change Idaho for the better. So let's row the vote. So now I would like to introduce Martha Smith from the Associated Students of the University of Idaho, who's going to kick off our first group of speakers.
Hello everyone, my name is Martha Smith and I'm the pro tempore of the ASUI Senate. But more importantly, I'm someone who can get pregnant who attends the University of Idaho. Recently, the university released a memo in response to the No Public Funds for Abortion Act that created a very large cloud of doubt for anyone who works or attends the university. In this memo, the General Counsel made a conservative interpretation in an attempt to protect and educate employees. However, what it resulted in was international attention to questions of freedom of speech and outrage about reproductive rights, rightfully so. If I'm not mistaken, we are the only university to make such aggressive, sweeping statements about reproductive rights on college campuses. As a result, journalism students aren't able to cover ethics surrounding abortion coverage. Students in gender studies classes aren't able to speak about the implications of having birth control access. And philosophy classes aren't able to play devil's advocate to better understand issues surrounding reproductive rights. I have a close friend who is in a class that gets full points for just participating because the professor is nervous that a negative or positive grade on an abortion paper might imply that they are pro-life or pro-choice. These instances are just a snapshot of the detriment surrounding the implication for the No Public Funds for Abortion Act and other extremist laws about abortion access in Idaho. And this will be by no means the end if we don't make our voices heard. ASUI recently passed a resolution stating the dissent for the legal ramifications included in the No Public Funds for Abortion Act. In our call to action, we state, the Senate body of the Associated Students of the University of Idaho call upon the Idaho legislature to repeal sections of the No Public Funds for Abortion Act related to speech, counseling, referrals, and the use of privately paid tuition and fees. At the very, very least, we need to be able to have conversations surrounding reproductive care on, of all places, a college campus. One of my favorite quotes of all time reads, "Being taught to avoid talking about politics and religion has led to a lack of understanding about politics and religion. What we should have been taught was how to have a civil conversation about a difficult topic." Civic engagement is one of the most powerful tools we have as Americans. Exercising your civic duty to vote and making your voice heard is necessary to steer Idaho out of the extremist pathway that we are currently heading down. In addition, it's important to approach these conversations with love and understanding for people with different viewpoints, as that's the only way to create real bipartisan change in this country. I started off in college as a finance and accounting major, with intentions to go into those fields. However, the state of Idaho's politics and issues like this made me realize that it is imperative to use our voices for good in heated political climates. In the coming years, I fear for my education, I fear for my little sister's education, and the people who will guide me through curriculums that will likely bring up abortion. None of those people deserve to be silenced or afraid of what they might bring up in an academic classroom simply because the Idaho legislature decided that this specific issue is off the table. It's time to vote in legislators that protect reproductive freedom. It's time to vote in legislators that care about my and my 3 little sisters' educational freedom. And it's time to vote in legislators who value people who can get pregnant in this country. As someone who can get pregnant and attends the University of Idaho, I urge everyone listening to vote for people who display these values and value our education at the University of Idaho. Thank you.
Everybody, my name is Luigi Boschetti. I am indeed a state employee. I'm a professor at the University of Idaho, and I'm here today in my capacity as the president of the faculty union that is part of the American Federation of Teachers. I'd like to thank the organizers for this beautiful rally. I'd like to thank all of you, and in particular, I'd like to thank the organizers for having us here and to allow me to bring a few remarks about, once again, the No Public Funds for Abortion Act and the crazy situation that we're under now in Idaho as public employees. The University of Idaho memo, the infamous memo, did have one positive effect. It did have the effect of making it known outside of Idaho how crazy the situation is in Idaho. It's not every day that the president in his weekly briefing gets to talk about Idaho. Usually it's quite a given that it's crazy. And President Biden, commenting on the situation, did say if what's going on in Idaho is do they know what century it is? And I think that is a good comment. The faction of the Republican Party does live in a different century. They believe that we are in the wrong century or that we are in the wrong country, because looking at the letter of the law at the moment, this is something that is really out of the playbook of the liberal democracies. This is straight out of Hungary, Poland, Turkey. These are all places where there are elections, but they are not free. And they are not free because the party in power uses the state apparatus, the executive power and the judiciary power, to make sure to stay in power. This is, I have no problem saying, what the Republican Party is trying to do in Idaho. Under this law, it is illegal for any state employee in their capacity as state employee to promote abortion. There is no accepted, court-tested definition of what it means to promote abortion. So this is open to interpretation. The General Counsel rightfully is pointing out that for any state employee at the moment, any discussion is dangerous. Anything beyond, and not better specified, viewpoint neutral discussion where the faculty member, the researcher, does not express any opinion, anything else might be subject to the law. And it goes beyond that. The memo did not touch on the repercussions on research. It would be very hard at the moment to have any faculty member or public official to take any position on public policy. This means that a philosophy professor whose field of study is ethics could not write a paper on the ethical consideration of abortions without opening up the possibility of this being questioned. Same goes for public policy, sociology, medicine, counseling. And once again, I'd like to reinforce that we're talking about criminal law. So this law empowers law enforcement to make a decision. We could have law enforcement go into a classroom and arresting a faculty member in the commission of a crime if in their judgment they have promoted abortion. It empowers a county prosecutor to charge a scientist, a researcher, a professor with a felony for having expressed an opinion. And the way these things work, the way they work in Russia under Putin, in Hungary, in Poland, is that you don't even need to enforce it. You don't need for people to be arrested. The risk is enough. Why should somebody to do their job risk having criminal charges brought up against them? It could be a potential life-changing event, even if they were found to be innocent in court. So the chilling effect is in having the law, not in applying it. They probably don't hope to get people in jail. It's enough the chilling effect, the self-censorship that this type of legislation will do. This is the goal of the law, and this is what we're not okay with. This is unconstitutional. This violates the First Amendment rights. This violates the right of the students to have an education. It violates the right of the students to hear opposing views and analyze them and debate them. It violates the right of the academic freedom. It violates really the ability of state servants in the state of Idaho to be public intellectuals, because the line is blurry between what we do in our capacity as state employees and what we do as private citizens. Faculty and scientists write. We can police discussion as much as we want in the classroom. What about writing an opinion piece for a newspaper? That is part of what faculty do, and that is something that under this law might stop happening in Idaho. Once again, this is an extreme authoritarian move where not only they pass a law that with extreme criminalization of abortion, but they also want to shut down any possible debate by telling us that if you do want to share your opinion, you are at risk of being charged with a felony. So what's the effect of this? People, they want people to leave, they want people to shut up. They also want to make sure that when we have to recruit your faculty, they'll think twice about coming to Idaho. Why not go somewhere else? And actually, why come into the public universities when they could find another job where there's no dealing with any of this? And again, that is exactly the playbook of the authoritarian illiberal democracy. What happened at the university in the last 10 days also tells us something else. The messaging was really bad. At the beginning, there was a lot of concern that this would be internal policy. It took 10 days of people speaking up, talking to the newspapers, talking to ACLU, talking to the Foundation for Individual Rights and Education. People were extremely afraid for their job, and yet they did speak up. And with 10 days of relentlessly bringing attention on Idaho, we did get the clarification that should have been there from the beginning, that this memo was not internal policy. It took 10 days of people speaking up, but this was a victory for the faculty. And this is telling us what we should all do in Idaho. We should not be silenced. We should not be afraid. We should be conscious that we are on the right side of history. This is also our country. This is not their country.
Yeah!
We have to organize, we have to coordinate, because there's strength in numbers. In the matter of state employees, as union, we've been coordinating with the ACLU and with the network of pro-choice criminal attorneys that exist in Idaho. So we can guarantee that if anybody ever gets charged under this law, we will be able to provide legal defense. And finally, we have to vote. To change this, we have to vote. We need to have different legislatures, different representatives in Boise, because this is not the exception. Last year, the ironically named House Bill 666 was trying to criminalize librarians for distributing material harmful to children. Once again, no definition, extremely ambiguous. That's the point of the law. Why bother doing your job if that can land you in jail, if that can land you arrested, if that can land you with criminal charges? This is the entire point, and the way of changing it is to speak up, vote, and again vote, and again vote, and make everybody vote. So once again, thank you so much for being here. This is not the end, this is just the beginning. It's going to be a long fight, but I think that if we all stick to it, we will be in a different kind of state. Thank you.
Hi there, I'm Joe Ellsbury. I am a family doctor, now retired, who practiced family medicine in Moscow for 14 years, including pregnancy care. I am here to talk about the effects of the draconian anti-abortion law that took effect 30 days after the Dobbs decision was handed down by the Supreme Court. It had been passed in, I believe, 2021, but was not effective until the Supreme Court decision returned decisions about abortion to the states. The newly effective section is titled Criminal Abortion, and it provides for felony charges against any physician or any licensed medical professional who assists that physician in providing an abortion or attempting an abortion. Abortion is defined as any action that has the intended effect of removing a pregnancy, a clinically diagnosable pregnancy. So that means that as soon as your period is a few days late, or as soon as you test positive, abortion is illegal. Your doctor and anyone with a license that helps them, the nurse, the anesthetist, whoever, can be charged with a felony. The penalties, if they are convicted, are a minimum of 2 years or up to 5 years in prison, and the first time, 6 months loss of their license, which means they couldn't practice their profession. On a subsequent offense, they could lose their license permanently, forever, okay? There are a couple of exceptions in the law. There is an exception that if in the doctor's best medical judgment, abortion is necessary to prevent the death of the mother, the legislature did not use inclusive language, the doctor can use that as an affirmative defense. What that means is they can still arrest the doctor, throw him in jail, they have to bail themselves out and go to court and prove with a preponderance of evidence that the patient was likely to die without that abortion. Okay. The exception that was in previous Idaho abortion laws for severe impairment of bodily functions is gone. It's only if the patient's going to die that the doctor can defend themselves from felony charges. There is also an exception for rape or incest, but prior to performing the abortion, the doctor has to have in their hands a copy of the police report from when the patient reported that rape or incident of incest to law enforcement, which as a practical matter isn't likely to be available in the time frame that's necessary for that patient to get their abortion. So those exemptions are in effect useless. okay? Currently, the Biden administration has filed a lawsuit pointing out that doctors complying with that statute could be in a position of violating a law called EMTALA that requires emergency rooms to provide emergency care without shuffling the patient off somewhere else. However, the definition of emergency in EMTALA is the patient must be exhibiting severe symptoms and be unstable and be in danger of immediate death or severe physical harm. Okay? There are many circumstances that might require termination of a pregnancy for medical reasons that don't meet the definition of emergency. Okay? A patient with cancer for which the only treatment is a drug that would harm the fetus isn't necessarily in imminent danger of death. They're not necessarily unstable, but under Idaho's law, the doctor couldn't provide that abortion to that patient. If a patient is bleeding heavily from a miscarriage, there is debate. In other states, basically, people have been required to wait until their hemoglobin and hematocrit drop to unacceptable levels and their blood pressure tanks and their heart rate skyrockets before the hospital's legal department will allow the physicians in that hospital to evacuate the uterus and stop that bleeding. Similar things have happened with infections in the uterus of a pregnant person. Some years ago, I believe in Ireland, a woman actually died of sepsis, an overwhelming infection that spread through her whole body, because Ireland had similar restrictions on abortion, and she wasn't sick enough to be in danger of dying until she was so sick that they couldn't save her. The same thing can happen here under Idaho law. Okay. Another category of need for abortion that's no longer recognized in Idaho law, it was recognized previously in the laws that were passed in 1973, but it is not available now, is terminating a pregnancy for severe fetal anomalies. That is no longer available as an option in the state of Idaho. There are numerous problems that can happen with the baby that may not even be detectable until the 20-week ultrasound or later. Many of them are completely incompatible with life. One example that I have known of personally is something called holoprosencephaly. Basically, some cells don't migrate where they're supposed to migrate during the formation of the fetus, and the brain doesn't split into two halves like it's supposed to. Depending on the severity of the lack of migration, the baby can end up with only one eye or no eyes, can end up with only a single nostril and a pig-like nose, and of course the brain, since it didn't split in half like it's supposed to, all the wiring is messed up. This is a condition that is incompatible with life. Under Idaho law, someone whose fetus had that condition would either have to travel to another state to terminate that pregnancy or carry that pregnancy until a baby that was going to die as soon as it was born was born. Okay? The other category of reason for terminating pregnancy that's not addressed in the current Idaho law is because the patient doesn't want to be pregnant. Ruth Bader Ginsburg said in the discussion over Roe versus Wade, the decision whether or not to bear a child is central to a person's life. It is central to their identity to their sense of self and to their dignity. The government has no business inserting themselves in that decision. In medicine, we have a concept called bodily autonomy, okay? As a physician, I cannot force a patient to undergo any medical procedure, okay? I can't force you to get your flu shot. I can't force you to get your COVID vaccine. I can't force you to take a medicine for your pneumonia. The mother of the 9-year-old kid in my pediatrics rotation in medical school, the kid had liver failure and was slowly getting worse and worse and worse, sicker and sicker and sicker. The mother was the only tissue match they had found, but no one could compel that mother to donate a portion of her liver to save that child's life. Now, the mother said, I'll do it if no other donor appears, if we can't find anybody else, but there's a significant chance of dying from having part of your liver taken out. And she had other children that she had a responsibility to as well. Luckily, in that case, another donor was eventually found before the kid was so sick she couldn't be saved. Okay? We can't even require you to donate blood, which is much less risky than donating a liver or continuing a pregnancy. Even if your blood is the only blood on the surface of the earth that could save somebody who's dying, we can't force you to donate that blood. No one should be able to force you to donate your uterus. Even if you accept the proposition that a fetus is an independent life from the moment of conception, there are valid scientific and religious arguments against that. But even if you accept that, pregnancy would be the only medical condition in which we require people to donate an organ to somebody else. We need to change that.
Yeah!
So, the way to change that is to vote. As bad as things are now, they are not done, right? Our fine Senator, David Nelson, his opponent in this election, Dan Foreman, when Mr. Foreman was a freshman senator 6 years ago, proposed a bill in the Idaho legislature to make all abortions first-degree murder charges for the doctor and the patient, okay? Within days of the Dobbs decision, Republicans at the national level were talking about enacting a nationwide abortion ban. After the Dobbs decision disingenuously said that they were returning the decision about abortion to the states where it belongs, immediately the Republicans turned around and started talking about a national abortion ban, okay? Contraception. The Dobbs decision, the Supreme Court's written decision, specifically talks about revisiting the decisions on every other Supreme Court decision that has been based upon the right to privacy. That means contraception being a right of everyone is at risk. That means what you do and who you do it with in the privacy of your bedroom is subject to no longer being just your business but the government's. In addition to the prohibition on discussing abortion and contraception for anybody employed by the state that was just discussed, there is a section that's been in Idaho law for several years prohibiting any licensed medical professional except under the direction of a physician, the specific direction of a physician, from advertising, offering medications, offering contraception, essentially any information around abortion or contraception, Anybody with a medical license can be charged with a felony if they didn't have specific instructions from a doctor to talk about that. That is not okay. That is not what we need in this world. We need to vote here in our local elections. We need to vote at the state level to vote out everybody that we can vote for. We need to mobilize everybody we know in this state and people that we know nationwide to vote out the Republicans that are pushing this fascist agenda.
My good. Oh, great. Well, thank you so much to our speakers thus far. Big thanks to Martha Smith from the University of Idaho Associated Students. Big thanks to Luigi Borschetti from the Teacher Federation, and big thanks to Dr. Joe Ellsbury. Can we get one more round? Awesome. So we've heard about how Idaho's extreme abortion bans have affected our students, our teachers, our educators, and our healthcare workers. Now let's talk about what we can do about this. If you all are like, man, that lady up there's face is kind of familiar, you might remember I ran for office 2 years ago. I ran for the Idaho legislature. And so I have so much respect for the people that we're about to hear from. It's hard and it's scary and it's character building, and I learned a lot, and I got called some pretty nasty names while I was carrying my baby on my front. I gave birth to my child 2 months before the election. I campaigned in COVID with a giant tummy, and people directed some pretty hurtful things towards me, assuming they understood how I felt about a situation. And that's what the right wants to do. They want to categorize us in the most heartless way, but we are the ones with heart. We are the ones with empathy for other people and other situations, right? We believe in the inherent dignity of each person and their right to make the decisions for their body that they are entitled to. So I'm so pleased to welcome several of wonderful people to the stage here. I'm going to start with somebody that I am very pleased to call my friend, Senator David Nelson.
I want you to talk to Dulcie afterwards and tell her she needs to run for something else again. We need more leaders like Dulcie Kirsten. So again, I'm Dave Nelson. I've been the state senator since 2018. I beat Dan Foreman after he yelled at the students, after he called Moscow the cesspool of liberalism. You know, that guy's his own worst enemy in this town. But still, he keeps coming back, you know, and 2 years ago, a different electorate, I only beat him by 200 votes. This is the definition of a purple district, and we, all three of us, need your helps again this year. Every legislative session I go down, and I know there's going to be 2 or 3 poorly thought out abortion bills. We in Idaho seem to be, or the legislature, not the people, seem to be dedicated of taking away the rights of people who can become pregnant, of the rights of us to love who we want to love, maybe even just the rights to have birth control. We got to stop that, okay? So I want to do 2 things. I want to give you sort of a measure of how you might see that we're succeeding this year, and I want to give you some tools to help us succeed, okay? So in Idaho, a vastly Republican state, still abortion rights poll higher than 50%. You know, the people support this. And we're, in Idaho legislature, there's 4 purple districts. And I know that's a sad thing to say. Only 4 out of 35 are really competitive. We win 3, the Republicans win the rest. But those 4 are important votes. And this year, I think you'll see the effect of Roe in those 4 districts. All of them have an anchor incumbent. Me in this district, Steve Birch in District 15, Ned Burns in District 26, which is Sun Valley, and James Ruchty in District 29, which is Pocatello. We should be able to sweep all those districts, and I challenge you to help us make sure we get the votes out to sweep these 4 competitive districts. And you know, since these are purple districts, this brings out what looks like some centrist Republicans, okay? That kind of look attractive to Moscow voters sometimes. But you know, those centrist Republicans aren't moderate. They are fiercely anti-abortion. They'll take our rights away. Their caucuses will drive them to vote to do that. And the only way we're going to make those centrist Republicans a bit more moderate is to unelect them this year and make them afraid of an election so they will represent our values better, okay? So Lori McCann is that candidate in this election. She's from Liston, seems like a very, very centrist Republican, but she is strongly anti-abortion. She voted for that infamous 666 bill to take away, to criminalize librarians. That's a race we can win, and we need to work to win. It shouldn't don't just re-elect me. We have 2 great candidates, Trish Carter-Goodheart, who's running against McCann, and Tim Gresback, who's running against Brandon Mitchell, who, you know, Brandon Mitchell seems like a little bit of a quiet guy himself, but he goes to the Freedom Foundation meetings. He is a minion of the far right, so we need to beat them both. So here's what you can do, okay? Our biggest weapon to persuade voters to vote for us is going door to door, okay? All our candidates have been doing this. We have volunteers, we have paid door knockers. We're about to start up a big operation funded by the Idaho Democratic Party to knock on 10,000 doors in District 6 before the election. So if you can volunteer, if you want a job, we're actually trying to hire 10 or 12 door knockers to do that. I want to know about it. And Ellie Finnegan right here is our organizer. Doing a great job, has been keeping all of us at the door through the election. Please see Ellie and at the table kind of back here with the Idaho Democratic Party. We're also doing a fair bit of phone calling. I have to say, I like door knocking better. I can look people in the eye, they can look at me, and you're a lot more effective that way. But if you'd rather on the phone, we're doing phone banking, and we're doing 2 things in these efforts right now. The big 10,000 door knock, we're trying to persuade people to vote for us, right? It's an ask to vote for Dave and Tim and Trish, okay? So that's important. I mean, we don't want to just make sure they're going to the polls. We want them to vote for us, okay? But number 2, we want to make sure every supporter votes, okay? So we're doing that to get people to early vote, make sure everybody that's registered, and finally get everybody to the polls that day. So that's a huge effort. It would be a great help if you could help do that. It's just really impactful. And finally, I really want help. Okay, I've been the lone Democratic senator north of Boise for 4 years. I'm like Lonesome Larry, the sockeye salmon that went to the Redfish Lake, 10 years ago. It's horrible. I know some of you are a little younger than me, but north of the Salmon River used to be a huge Democratic stronghold. In 1990, every legislative seat north of the Salmon, except for 1, was held by a Democrat. Well, we can make a step that way this year. You can send 3 people to the Idaho legislature from District 6. So please do it. Please go out and vote. Vote yes for all of us. I appreciate it.
Hi. Ooh, that's loud. Hi, I'm Trish Carter-Goodheart. Hi guys, I wish I could take pictures. You guys are beautiful. So I'm the candidate for Legislative District 6, and I'm running on seat A. I know there's a lot of you that I haven't got to meet yet, but I intend on meeting all of you. This is the world's shortest campaign. I'm actually a replacement candidate. The candidate before me was Jamal Likesat, and he had to withdraw for some health reasons. But I'm here, and it's incredible. It's incredible. I never expected to be a politician. I never expected to run for any races like this. But I'm here, and I'm embraced by the Democratic Party. A candidate that looks and sounds like me could not exist in the Republican Party. You guys all deserve leaders and representatives that look just like you, that have skin in the game. And that's why I was really excited to be welcomed and to be invited here today. Because I have my own reproductive issues. Between this is my daughter Lavender, and and my son Avery is over here playing with his dad. But between them we had an inviolable pregnancy, and I was told by my OBGYN that there was no heartbeat. I was devastated. And I literally tried to find another provider that could tell me that there was a heartbeat existing. And there's so many women that go through a similar circumstance, and it's not fair. But before this law, discrimination against us was already happening. When I went to the pharmacy to get the medication my OBGYN gave me so I could have a self-managed abortion at home, it was refused by the pharmacist, by the pharmacy to fill. I literally had to call my OBGYN and tell her that I was being refused medication that could help me have a safe and healthy abortion at home. It was said I had to call her and tell her, this is where I am. I feel lost. I feel ignored. I didn't know what to do. But luckily, I had an OBGYN that believed me, for one, that knew me and cared about me enough to come down to the pharmacy with the nurse, who actually was one of my friends, and demand that that pharmacist give me the medication that I needed for a safe abortion at home. And it's so, I don't even know if this is ironic or not, but I was at the League of Women Voters Forum the other night, and there's candidates that are running that don't even believe the rhetoric that they're spewing. It's crazy to me that the person that was sitting to the left of me, after all the hateful things the other Republican candidates were saying about a woman's right, about attacking bodily autonomy, she was literally saying to me, "Oh, Trish, I don't believe that. I don't believe that at all. But this is our party, and this is where we are, and I have to make these exceptions." And I was like, "What are you talking about? Like, you can't be cool with me after you just are endorsing the hateful speech that they say. It's not right." It's not right. So, I encourage all of you not only to vote, not only to be engaged in the civic process, but being engaged in your civic duties also requires you to run for office. So I encourage you all. This isn't as hard as it looks. There's money out there for you. There's a whole network of people that will support your campaigns, just like they've done for me. When they called me, I'm busy being a mom. I'm busy being a student. I'm busy trying to start my own nonprofit. I'm busy being an active community member. And they called and I said, who else is running? Who else is? Everyone said no. Everyone said no? You're kidding me. And so I encourage you all. If you guys want to do this, there's a network for you to do it. There's a process. These people are amazing, and they will support you, and you will be heard. Whatever you love and care about, they can help you find those issues, refine those issues, and create your own policy. It's amazing, you guys. So thank you so much. Thank you for being here, and go vote blue.
My name's Tim. I've been endorsed by Planned Parenthood because I believe in reproductive freedom. You know, I've been a lawyer for 35 years, and I never thought I would see the day when the United States Supreme Court would eliminate a constitutional right. There has not been a healthy society in the history of humankind that has eliminated a constitutional right. The 1973 Roe versus Wade decision was built on other decisions recognizing the right to privacy. In 1967, the court struck down in Gresback versus Connecticut a criminal ban on the use of contraception. Its reasoning in the Gresback decision was that although privacy is not an explicit constitutional right, if you take the entire Bill of Rights and put that together, it creates a right to privacy. So they built on the Gresback decision and issued Roe almost 50 years ago. The Roe decision came out, and the right to privacy as articulated in Roe versus Wade became a bedrock constitutional doctrine in our democracy. For example, in 2003, borrowing the reasoning of this right to privacy that comes from the Bill of Rights, the United States Supreme Court in Lawrence versus Texas said, no, the state of Texas, you cannot outlaw the intimate behavior of same-sex couples. But now, in the wake of the Dobbs decision, the right wing is chomping at the constitutional bit to eliminate all rights that aren't explicitly listed in the Constitution. Justice Clarence Thomas wants us to go backward. They want to eviscerate all unenumerated rights, like contraception, gay marriage, and same-sex intimacy. But as dark as this is, I see some light. And let me tell you why. We do not need to sit around and wait for Justice Alito or Justice Thomas to pass away and hope that we have a blue president that would appoint some progressive justices. We don't have to do that. We can legitimately, lawfully bypass the Supreme Court through the ballot box. We can elect representatives that will establish these fundamental rights of privacy and protect the freedoms that we hold so dear. Let me state it another way. The Supreme Court is not the only avenue to achieve reproductive freedom. Rights can emanate not just from the U.S. Constitution, but from state statutes. But we need to get off our voting asses! Don't agonize, organize! 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 Don't agonize! Let's organize! Thank you!
guys, but we better send Tim down there. That would really give the legislature a wake-up call. Get down there on January 4th, or whatever the opening day is. You won't know what hit him. Well, I want to thank all of our candidates and all of our speakers who spoke today. I really want to thank all of you for being here. It's a beautiful day, and you could have done lots of things, and you came in solidarity to make sure that we are moving forward, not backward. I also want to make sure that we thank all of our partners who are tabling here with us today. We've got the League of Women Voters of Moscow. That's right. Round of applause for the League. Near and dear to my heart. Babe Vote is over here. Thank you, Babe Vote. Northwest Abortion Access Fund and Planned Parenthood. Thank you. And the Lakeside County Democrats. That's right. If you don't know, they have an office right downtown. Be sure to stop by. And finally, our organizers, Bands Off Moscow. Thank you, Bands Off Moscow, for keeping us going. Thanks again to Moscow Contemporary for their continued support, and to the Moscow Peace Band for their great music. And speaking of music, I hope that you're all going to stick around. Be sure that you spend some time at the tables again. But we're going to have Allison Anders playing some music for us to really just have some time together, connect, organize, as Tim said. So thank you to the many volunteers that made this possible. Can we get the volunteers to give a little wave? I know there's been a whole cohort of people over here. This is hard work, and they're doing it on top of their normal jobs. So please, give them a thank you before you leave. So today shows that when we all come together, great things can happen. I feel like maybe we need to close out with one more Roe the Vote this November chant. So here we go. Roe the vote. Roe the vote.